Okay, today we are going to travel to Italy, northern Italy. Actually, a travel essay is what? It shows everything about yourself, right? So, if you're a child, the travelogue is about the child's life, right? If you're an artist, he talks about a lot about art. Dickens is a great novelist, and this travelogue, this travel essay is fantastic. It's rich, a lot of interesting observations, and you learn about a lot about the places he is visiting, and there are very many interesting places, place names, and people appear in this essay. So we have to rely on the dictionary. So while going through the essay, do you know where Siena is? Pisa, okay. Pisa. This is Pisa, Commune di Pisa. Commune is a very old city, like town, and Pisa. It's northern Italy. Pisa, right? Pisa. And Siena is in the middle around here. Okay. There is nothing in Italy more beautiful to me than the coast road between Genoa and Spezia, the western coast, Genoa and Spezia. On one side, sometimes far below, sometimes nearly on the level with the road, and often skirted by broken rocks of many shapes, there is the free blue sea with here and there a picturesque felucca gliding slowly on. Felucca ship, small ship, sailboat. And on the other side are lofty hills, ravines, but sprinkled with white cottages, patches of dark olive woods, country churches with their light open tower painted. At the wayside, all cactus and aloe flourish in exuberant profusion, and the gardens of the bright villages along the road are seen all blushing in the summertime with the clusters of the belladonna tree, kind of eggplants, and are fragrant in the autumn winter with golden oranges and lemons. So it's very beautiful, a lot of things, right? It's like picture. You will take so many pictures, but you can't put everything in it. So travel essay is he has a keen eye. He sees everything, right? A lot of information in it. So because he's a novelist. So if there's things like that, meditation, right? What you think about. But here, he describes the scenes, right, as they are. Some of the villages are inhabited almost exclusively by fishermen, right, at the time, right? And it is pleasant to see their great boats hauled up on the beach, making little patches of shade where they lie asleep and where the women and children sit romping and looking out to sea while they man their nets upon the shore. There's one town, Camolia, with its little harbor on the sea, hundreds of feet below the road, where families of mariners live who, time out of mind, have owned coasting vessels in that place and have traded to Spain and elsewhere. Seen from the road above, it is like a tiny model on the margin of the dimpled water shining in the sun, descended into by the winding mule tracks. It is a perfect miniature of a primitive seafaring town. The saltest, the loftiest, most piratical little place that ever was seen. Great rusty iron rings and mooring chains, capstans, the fragments of old masts, spars choke up the way. Hardy, rough-weather boats and seamen's clothing flutter in the little harbor or are drawn out on the sunny stones to dry. On the parapet of the rude pier, a few amphibious-looking fellows lie asleep with the legs dangling over the wall, as though earth or water were all one to them, and if they slipped in, they would float away, dozing comfortably among the fishes. This is the novelistic idea, novelistic view, right? He is writing a novel here, right? Novelist imagination. The church is bright with trophies of the sea, votive offerings in commemoration of escapes from storm and shipwreck. The dwellings are not immediately abutting on the harbor, approached by blind low archways and by crooked steps, as if in darkness, as if in difficulty of access. They should be like hulls of ships in convenient cabins underwater. And everywhere there is a smell of fish, seaweed, all brought. The coast road whence Camolia is decried so far below, decry, the verb decry, very, very convenient, is far below, right? Decry, the word, good. It's famous in the warm season, especially in some parts near Genoa, for fireflies. Walking there on a dark night, I've seen it made one sparkling firmament by these beautiful insects, so that the distant stars were pale against the flash and glitter that spangled every olive tree and hillside and pervaded the whole air. Fantastic, very beautiful. Fireflies. Can you see fireflies these days? Hardly, right? Hardly. If you go to the countryside, you can see it in deep mountain, right? It is not in such a season, however, that we traverse this road on our way to Rome. The middle of January was just only past. It was very gloomy and dark weather, very wet besides. In crossing the fine pass of Praca, we encountered such a storm of mist and rain that we traveled in a cloud the whole way. There might have been no Mediterranean in the world for anything that we saw of it there, except when a sudden gust of wind, clearing the mist before it for a moment, showed the agitated sea and the great gulf below, lashing the distant rocks and spouting up its foam furiously. Very beautiful, very ferocious scene. The sea. The rain was incessant. Every brook and torrent was greatly swollen, such a deafening, leaping, roaring, thundering of water. I never heard the like of in my life. Good. Can you describe this way? Hardly, right? Hence, when we came to Spezia, we found that the Magra, an unbreezed river on the high road to Pisa, was too high to be safely crossed in the ferry boat, and were fain to wait until the afternoon of next day, when it had, in some degree, subsided. Spezia, however, is a good place to tarry at, stay, right? Put up at, tarry at, by reason, firstly, of its beautiful bay, secondly, by way of its ghostly inn, thirdly, by reason of the headdress of the women. I like this, right? The description of headdress is longest. Of the headdress of the women, who wear on one side of their head small dull straw hat, stuck onto the hair, which is certainly the oddest and most roguish headgear that ever was invented. Okay, have you seen this kind of headgear? Hat? The marker are safely crossed in the ferry boat. The passage is not by any means agreeable. When the current is swollen and strong, we arrived at the Carrara within a few hours. Carrara is a very famous for the special stone, and all the artists who are great sculptors wanted to go there, Carrara, and the whole mountain is made of what? Is rocks, white rocks. Do you want to have a look, Carrara? Carrara. Wow. This mountain, right? Okay, look at here. Carrara mountain. Here. Carrara marble quarry. You see the white. Oh, this one, right? Carrara. This is not snow. Stone. Carrara. Actually, when I went to the Napoli, all the roads covered with marbles. I was surprised. Very beautiful. And I walked around, and one of students showed up, and it's dangerous. Don't walk. And he took me to the hotel. I didn't know that there were so many hooligans gangs, so it's dangerous to walk around. But I didn't know. We arrived at Kerala within a few hours, and good time. Next morning, we got some panis and went out to see the marble quarries. There are 4 or 5 great glens running up into a range of lofty hills. You see the glens until they can run no longer and are stopped by being abruptly strangled by nature. The quarries, or caves as they call them there, so many openings high up in the hills on either side of these passes where they blast and excavate for marble. And actually, if you go to Aix-en-Provence, there is a mountain, and there are beautiful rocks, yellowish brown rocks, very beautiful, and there are huge rocks, and they stopped the quarrying, and Paul Cézanne went there and played. When he was, as a child, he went there and played. And he went to Paris and learned to paint. And then he came back to Aix-en-Provence, went there and painted again. And that becomes Cubist painting, the prototype Cubist painting, right? It's very interesting, right? So, blast and high up in the hills on either side of these passes, where they blast and excavate for marble, which may turn out good or bad, may make a man's fortune very quickly or ruin him by the great expense of working what is worth nothing. Some of these caves are opened by the ancient Romans and remained as they left them to this hour. Many others are being worked at this moment. Others are to be begun tomorrow, the next week, next month. Others are unbought, unthought of. Marvel, enough for more ages than have passed since the place was resorted to, lies hidden everywhere, patiently awaiting its time of discovery. So if you're a sculptor, go there. And the stones are very expensive, you know. So, but they are not very expensive. Plenty of stone there, beautiful stone. As you toil and clamber up one of these steep gorges, having left your pony soddening his girths in water a mile or two lower down, you hear every now and then, echoing among the hills in a low tone, more silent than the previous silence, a melancholy warning bugle, a signal to the miners to withdraw. Right? Then there is a thundering and echoing from hill to hill, perhaps a splashing up of great fragments of rock into the air, and on you toil again until some of the bugle sounds in a new direction, and you stop directly, lest you should come within the range of new explosion. Wonderful, right? I don't know, maybe if you go there, you can't see them because much of rock, a large part of the mountain have been exploited, I think. There are numbers of men working high up in these hills on the sides, clearing away, sanding down the broken masses of stone and earth to make way for the blocks of marble that had been discovered. As these came rolling down from unseen hands into the narrow valley, I couldn't help thinking of the deep glen, just the same sort of glen where the rock left Sinbad the sailor. So he's a novelist, and he remembers the story, Sinbad, and where the merchants from the heights above flung down great pieces of meat for the diamonds to stick to. There were no eagles here to darken the sun in their swoop and pounce upon them, but it was as wild and fierce as if there had been hundreds. But the road down, which the marble comes, however immense the blocks, the genius of the country and the spirit of its institutions pave that road, repair it, watch it, keep it going. Conceive a channel of water running over a rocky bed beset with great heaps of stone of all shapes and sizes, winding down the middle of this valley. And that being the road, because it was the road 500 years ago, imagine the clumsy carts of 500 years ago being used to this hour, drawn as they used to be 500 years ago by oxen, whose ancestors were worn to death 500 years ago, as the unhappy descendants are now, in 12 months, by the suffering and the agony of this cruel work. 2 pair, 4 pair, 10 pair, 20 pair, to come block according to his size. Down, it must come this way. In their struggling from stone to stone, with the enormous loads behind them, they die frequently upon the spot. They're very dangerous. And not they alone, for their passionate drivers sometimes tumbling down in their energy are crushed to death beneath the wheels. But it was good for 500 years ago, and it must be good now. And the railroad down one of these steeps, the easiest things in the world, would be flat blasphemy. Well, when we stood aside to see one of these cars drawn by only a pair of oxen, for it had but one small block of marble on it, coming down, I hailed in my heart the man who sat upon the heavy yoke to keep it on the neck of the poor beasts, who faced backwards, not before him, as the very devil of true despotism. He had a great rod in his hand with an iron point, and when they could plow and force their way through the loose bed of the torrent, no longer came to stop. He poked it into their bodies, beat it on the head, screwed it round and round in their nostril, got them on a yard or two in the madness of intense pain. Repeated all these persuasions with increased intensity of purpose when they stopped again, got them on once more, forced and goaded them to an abrupt point of descent. And when they're writhing and smarting, and the weight behind them bore them plunging down the precipice in a cloud of scattered water, rolled his rod above his head and gave a great whip and hello, as if he had achieved something, had no idea they might shake him off and blindly smash his brains upon the road in the noontide of his triumph. Like like in the Riders to the Sea, shaken off. He might be shaken off. Standing in one of the many studios, it's the plural form, I think, the many studii of Carrara that afternoon for It's a Great Workshop, full of beautifully finished copies in marble of almost every figure, group, bust we know. It seemed at first so strange to me that those exquisite shapes, with grace and thought and delicate repose should grow out of all this toil and sweat and torture. I soon found the parallel to it and an explanation of it in every virtue that springs up in miserable ground, every good thing that has its birth in sorrow and distress. And looking out of the sculptor's great window upon the marble mountains, all red and glowing day, but still in solemn light, I thought, my God, how many quarries of human hearts and souls capable of far beautiful results are left shut up, smoldering away, while the pleasure travelers through life avert their faces as they pass and shudder at the gloom and loneliness that conceal them. The then reigning Duke of Modena, the region, to whom this territory in part belonged, claimed the proud distinction of being the only sovereign in Europe who had not recognized as king of France. He was not a wag, but in earnest. He was also much opposed to railroads, and if certain lines in operation by the potentates on either side of him had been executed, would have probably enjoyed the satisfaction of having an omnibus plying to and fro across his not very vast dominions to forward travelers from one terminus to another. Kerala, shut in by great hills, is very picturesque and bold. Few forests stay there, and the people are nearly all connected in one way or another with the working of marble. There are also villages among the caves where the workmen live. It contains a beautiful little theater, newly built, and it is an interesting custom there to form the chorus of laborers in the marble quarries who are self-taught and sing by ear. Interesting. They didn't study music, right? They learn by ear, by hearing. I heard them in a comic opera and in an act of Norma, and they acquitted themselves very well, unlike the common people of Italy generally, who, with some exceptions among the Neapolitans, sing wildly out of tune and have very disagreeable singing voices. From the summit of lofty hill beyond Carrara, the first view of the fertile plain in which the town of Pisa lies. Beyond the Pisa, right? With Leghorn. Leghorn is a what? English name. Leghorn. There is a Italian name of it. Okay, Leghorn. A purple spot in flat distance is enchanting, nor is it only a distance that lends enchantment to the view. For the fruitful country, rich hues of olive trees through which the road subsequently passes, render it delightful. The moon was shining when we approached Pisa, and for a long time we could see behind the wall the leaning tower. The leaning tower, right? It keeps falling down, right? Eventually it'll fall, right? 첨성대, right? It's a little bit leaning after the earthquake, right? All awry in uncertain light. They shadow the original of old pictures in school books, setting forth the wonders of the world. Like most things connected in the first association with school books and school times, it was too small. Yes, actually, when you go back to your hometown, some of the structures, some of the schools, particularly your primary school, it looks so small. But in childhood, it's so big, right? When you return to your hometown, you'll see that, right? So it's kind of subjective feeling, subjective, right? Like most things connected in their first association with school books and school times, it was too small. I felt it keenly. It was nothing like so high above the wall as I had hoped. It was another of the many deceptions practiced by Mr. Harris, bookseller, at the corner of St. Paul's Churchyard, London. His tower was a fiction. But this is a reality, and by comparison, a short reality. Still, it looked very well, very strange, and was quite as much out of the perpendicular as Harris had represented to be. These are two, the big guardhouse at the gates, with only two little soldiers in it, the streets with scarcely any show of people in them, and the Arno river flowing quaintly through the center of the town were excellent. So I bore no malice in my heart against Mr. Harris, remembering his good intentions, but full of confidence to see the tower this morning. Have you been to Rome? There is a cathedral, and you can climb up to the top. It's designed built by Michelangelo. Toward the top, it's so narrow. It's very difficult to climb to the top. I reached the top, right? I might have known better, but somehow I had expected to see it casting its long shadow on a public street where people came and went all day. It was a surprise to me to find it in a grey, retired place apart from the general resort and carpeted with the smooth green turf. But the group of buildings clustered on and about this verdant carpet, the field, rather, lawns, yeah, comprising the tower, baptistry, the cathedral, the church of Campo Santo, is perhaps the most remarkable and beautiful in the whole world. So there, sure to see these buildings, these school buildings, right? It is perhaps the most remarkable and beautiful in the whole world. From being clustered there together, away from the ordinary transactions and details of town, they have a singularly vulnerable and impressive character. It is the architectural essence of a rich old city. All its common life and common habitations pressed out, filtered away. Good, very good description. Simone compares, the author, the tower to the usual pictorial representation in children's books of the Tower of Babel. Have you seen a Tower of Babel? Babel Tower? No? You have never seen it? It was built about 2000 BC. So nobody today has seen it. But we can imagine that there are paintings of it. And look, the Tower of Babel. Okay, I'll show you. Here. Who built it? Who built the power of the Tower of Babel? The great grandson of Noah. The great grandson of Noah. Interesting, right? There are two pictures here. This one, and when they built the tower, we had one language. The whole world had one language, right? And there's another picture. I think it's a real thing, right? Here, right? Look at this. Hanging Gardens of Babylon. This is the Tower of Babel in the distance. Look, it looks the same. In different pictures, you see the same structures, right? Quite interesting. So we are building the Tower of Babel right now, right? Here in Korea, Lotte Tower. Okay? Right. Simone compares the tower to the usual pictorial representations in children's books, the Tower of Babel. It is a happy simile, conveys a better idea than chapters of description. See the grace and lightness of the structure. Nothing can be more remarkable than its general appearance. I think Dickens is a architect. His observation is very keen, right? Can you say things Dickens say here? No, right, Shirley? You must have some knowledge of it, right? So, nothing can be more remarkable than its general appearance. In the course of the ascent of the top, which is by an easy staircase, the inclination not very apparent, but at the summit, it becomes so and gives one the sensation of being in a ship that has heeled over through the action of an ebb tide. This effect upon the low side, so to speak, looking over from gallery and seeing the shaft recede to its base is very startling. And I saw a nervous traveler hold on to the tower involuntarily after glancing down as if he had some idea of propping it up. The view within, from the ground, looking up as through a slanted tube is also very curious. It certainly inclines as much as the most sanguine tourist could desire. The natural impulse of 99 people out of 100 who are about to recline upon the grass below it to rest, contemplate the adjacent buildings would probably be not to take up their position under the leaning side. It is so very much aslant. The manifold beauties of the cathedral and baptistry need no recapitulation from me, though in this case, as in hundred others, I find it difficult to separate my own delight in recalling them from your weariness in having them recalled. There is a picture of Saint Agnes by Andrea del Sarto. Andrea del Sarto, who is it? Painter. He was very famous. He made no mistakes when painting, and when I look at them, it's kind of boring, very exact. He was famous before the appearance of three great painters, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Leonardo. Okay. A picture of Saint Agnes by Andrea del Sarto in the former, and there are a variety of rich columns in the latter that tempt me strongly. It is, I hope, no breach of my resolution not to be tempted into elaborate descriptions to remember the Campo Santo, where grass-grown graves are dug in earth, brought more than 600 years ago from the Holy Land, where there are, surrounding them, such cloisters with such playing lights and shadows falling through their delicate tracery on the stone pavement, as surely the dullest memory could never forget. On the walls of this solemn and lovely place are ancient frescoes, wall paintings, frescoes like water-based colors, frescoes, very much obliterated and decayed, but very curious. As usually happens in almost any collection of paintings of any sort in Italy, where there are many heads, there is in one of them a striking accidental likeness of Napoleon. Very interesting. There are many figures there, many heads, and among them, he found a figure that resembles Napoleon. What does it mean? Napoleon must be from Italy, right? his ancestors. At one time, I used to please my fancy with the speculation whether these old painters at their work had a foreboding knowledge of the man who would one day arise to wreak such destruction upon art. Right? Whose soldiers would make targets of great pictures and stable their horses among triumphs of architecture. But the same Corsican, he was born in Corsica, Napoleon. The same Corsican face is so plentiful in some parts of Italy at this day that a more commonplace solution of the instance is unavoidable. If Pisa be the seventh wonder of the world in right of its tower, it may claim to be at least the second or third in the right of its beggars. Very interesting. Pisa is famous for his reclining tower, and also is famous for what? Beggars. There are so many beggars there. They waylay the unhappy visitor at every turn, escort him to every door he enters at, lie in wait for him with strong reinforcements at every door by which they know he must come out. So, what to do? When you see a beggar, what do you have to do? Don't give money. If you give money, the crowd will appear and chase after you, right? So, the grating of the portal on its hinges is the signal for a general shout, and the moment he appears, he is hammed in and fallen on by heaps of rags and personal distortions. Their beggars seem to embody all the trade and enterprise of Pisa. Nothing else is stirring but warm air. Going through the streets, the fronts of the sleepy houses look like bags. They are all so still and quiet, and unlike houses with people in them, that the great part of the city has the appearance of a city. At daybreak and during a general siesta of the population. Siesta, do you know what siesta is? No. In hot climates, you have to sleep. You have to take nap. Unless, what happens? You will die of heart attack, right? It's so hot, right? The great part of the city has the appearance of a city at daybreak and during general siesta of the population. Or it is yet more like those backgrounds of houses in common prints or in old engravings where windows, doors are squarely indicated, and one figure, a beggar of course, is seen walking off by itself into a limitable perspective. Not so Leghorn, made illustrious by Smollett's grave, which is a thriving, business-like, matter-of-fact place where idleness is shouldered out of the way by commerce. The regulations up there in reference to trade and merchants are very liberal and free. The town, of course, benefits by them. Leghorn, the Italian name is Livorno. Livorno. Leghorn had a bad name in connection with stabbers. Leghorn, stabbers here. Pisa, beggars, right? Stabbers. Stabbers, and with this justice, it must be allowed for, that many years ago, there was an assassination club there, the members of which bore no ill will to anyone in particular, but stabbed people, quite strangers to them, in the streets at night for the pleasure and excitement of the recreation. So, for pleasure, you kill somebody. Is it possible? Very interesting, right? I think the president of this amiable society was shoemaker. Shoemaker, he was a shoemaker. He was taken, however, and the club was broken up. It would probably have disappeared in the natural course of events before the railroad between Leghorn and Pisa, which is a good one, has already begun to astonish Italy with the precedent of punctuality, order, plain dealing, and improvement, the most dangerous and heretical astonish of all. There must have been a slight sensation, as if of earth, surely, in the Vatican, when the first Italian railroad was thrown open. Oh, really, very impressive, right? It was very quiet, but these Certainly there were railroads, right? Returning to Pisa and hiring a good-tempered vetrino, preacher, so a good-tempered vetrino. There was a preacher named Vetrino, and his 4 horses to take us on to Rome. We traveled through the present Tuscan villages and cheerful scenery all day. The roadside crosses in this part of Italy are numerous and curious. There is seldom a figure on the cross, though there is sometimes a face, but they are remarkable for being garnished with little models in wood of every possible object. That can be connected with the Savior's death. The cock that crowed when Peter had denied his master thrice is usually perched on the tip-top, an ornithological phenomenon he surely is. Under him is the inscription. Then hung on to the crossbeam are the spear, the reed with the sponge of vinegar and water at the end, the coat without seam, for which the soldiers cast lots, the dice box with which they threw for it, the hammer that drove in the nails, the pincers that pulled them out, the ladder which was set against the cross, the crown of thorns, the instrument of flagellation, the lantern with which Mary went to the tomb, I suppose, and the sword with which Peter smote the servant of the high priest. Perfect toy shop of little objects repeated at every 4 or 5 miles all around the highway. Interesting, right? They sell souvenirs, right? On the evening of the second day from Pisa, we reached the beautiful city of Siena, right? There was what they call the carnival in progress. Carnival, right? Festival. Yet, as the streets lay in a score or 2 of melancholy people walking up and down the principal street in common toy shop masks, and being more melancholy possible than the same sort of people in England, I say no more of it. We went up bedtimes next morning to see the cathedral, which is wonderfully picturesque inside and out, especially the latter, also the marketplace, a great piazza, which is a large square, with a great broken-nosed fountain in it, some quaint Gothic houses, and the high square brick tower, outside the top of which, a curious feature in such views in Italy, hangs an enormous bell. It is like a bit of Venice, Venice, without water. Interesting. It looks like Venice without water. There are some curious old palazzi in the town, which is very ancient, and without having, for me, the interest of Verona or Genoa. It is very dreamy and fantastic and most interesting. We went on again. As soon as we had seen these things and going over a rather bleak country, there had been nothing but the vines until now. Mere walking sticks at the season of the year, stopped as usual between 1 and 2 hours in the middle of the day to rest the horses. At the time they traveled on horseback. Right? They were probably that's probably the only way. That being a part of every Pentrino conflict. We then went on again through a region gradually becoming bleaker and wilder until it became as bare and desolate as any Scottish moors. Soon, after dark, we halted for the night at the osteria of La Scala, a perfectly lone house where a family was sitting round the great fire in the kitchen, on a stone platform 3 or 4 feet high, big enough for the roasting of an ox. On the upper and only other floor of this hotel, there was a great wild rambling sala with one very little window in a by corner and 4 black doors opening into 4 black bedrooms in various different directions. To say nothing of another large black door opening into another large black sala with the staircase coming abruptly through a kind of trapdoor in the floor, the rafters of the roof looming above, a suspicious little press skulking in one obscure corner, and all the knives in the house lying about in various directions. The fireplace was of the purest Italian architecture, so that it was perfectly impossible to see it from the smoke. The waitress was like a dramatic brigand's wife, and wore the same style of dress upon her head. The dogs barked like mad, and the echoes returned the compliments bestowed upon them. There was not another house within 12 miles, and things had a rather cutthroat appearance. They were not improved by rumors of robbers having come out strong and boldly within a few nights, and of their having stopped the mail very near that place. They were known to have waylaid some travelers not long before on Mount Vesuvius itself, and were the talk at all the roadside inns, as they were no business. They were no business of ours. However, for we had very little with us to lose, we made ourselves merry on the subject and were very soon as comfortable as need be. We had the usual dinner in the sultry house, and a very good dinner it is, and when you are used to it. There is something with a vegetable, some rice in it, which is a sort of shorthand, arbitrary character for soup, and which tastes very well when you have flavored it with plenty of grafted cheese, lots of salt, and abundance of pepper. There is the half fowl of which the soup has been made. There is a stewed pigeon with the gizzard and livers of himself and other birds stuck all round him. There's a bit of roast beef, the size of a small French roll. There are a scrap of Parmesan cheese and 5 little withered apples, all huddled together on a small plate and crowding one upon the other, as if each were trying to save itself from the chance of being eaten. Right. Are you hungry? Then there is coffee, and then there is bed. You don't mind brick floors, you don't mind yawning doors, nor banging windows. You don't mind your own horses being stabled under the bed, and so close that every time a horse coughs or sneezes, he wakes you up. Right? If you are good-humored, to the people about you, speak presently and look cheerful, take my word for it. You may be well entertained in the very worst Italian inn, and always in the most obliging manner, and may go from one end of the country to the other, despite all stories to the contrary, without any great trial of your patience anywhere. Especially when you get such wine in flasks as the Orvieto and the Monte Pulciano. It was a bad morning when we left this place, and we went for 12 miles over a country as barren, as stony, and as wild as Cornwall in England. So usually when you write travel essay, you have to compare the new place with something, and you compare them with what you know. So you're supposed to compare the new places with the places you are familiar with. Right? For Cornwall, until we came to La di Confani, where there's a ghostly goblin inn, once a hunting seat belonging to the Dukes of Tuscany. It's full of such rambling corridors, gaunt rooms, but all the muttering and phantom tales that ever were written might have originated in that one house. Interesting, right? There are some horrible old palazzi in Genoa, one in particular, not unlike it outside, but there is a winding, creaking, wormy, rumbling, door opening, foot on stairs, staircase falling character about this La Riconfani Hotel, such as I never saw anywhere else. This town, such as this, hangs on a hillside above the house and in front of it. The inhabitants are all beggars, and as soon as they see a carriage coming, they swoop down upon it like so many birds of prey. Interesting, right? Birds, right? When we get on the mountain pass, which lies beyond this place, the wind, as they had forewarned us at the end, was so terrific that we were obliged to take our other half out of the carriage, lest she should be blown over, carriage and all, to hang to it on the windy side, as well as we could for laughing, to prevent its going. Heaven knows where. For mere force of wind, this land storm might have competed with an Atlantic gale and had a reasonable chance of coming off victorious. The brush came swooping down great gullies in a range of mountains on the right, so that we looked with positive awe at the great morass on the left, and so that there was another bush or twig to hold by. It seemed as if, once blown from our feet, we might be swept out to sea, and away into space. There was snow and hail and rain and lightning and thunder. This is Dickinson style, right? There was snow, comma, and hail, comma, and rain, comma, lightning and thunder. And they were rolling mist, traveling with incredible velocity. It was dark, awful, sultry. To the last degree, there were mountains above mountains, filled in angry clouds, and there was such a watchful, rapid, violent, tumultuous hurry everywhere, as rendered the scene unspeakably exciting and grand. Very beautiful. Dickinsonian style, right? It was a relief to get out of it, notwithstanding, and to cross even the dismal, dirty Papal frontier after passing through two little towns, and one of which, Acopenditente, there was also a carnival in progress, consisting of one man dressed and masked as a woman, one woman dressed and masked as a man, walking ankle deep through the muddy streets in a very melancholy manner. We came at dusk within sight of the lake of Bolsena. The lake is a very huge one, on whose bank there is a little town of the same name, much celebrated for malaria. With the exception of this poor place, there is not a cottage on the banks of the lake or near it, for nobody dare sleep there, not a boat upon its waters, not a stick nor stick to break the dismal monotony of 27 watery miles. We were late in getting in, the roads being very bad from heavy rains, and after dark, dullness of scene was quite intolerable. We entered on a very different and a very finer scene of desolation next night at sunset. We had passed through Monte Fiascone, famous for its wine, and Viterbo, for its fountains, and after climbing up a long hill at 8 or 12 miles extent, came suddenly upon a margin of a sultry lake. In one part, very beautiful, with luxuriant wood, in another, very barren, shut in by bleak volcanic hills. Where the lake flows, there stood the walled city. It was swallowed up one day, then, in its stead, this water rose. Really? There were ancient traditions common to many parts of the world of the ruined city, having seen below when the water was clear, but however, that may be from this spot of earth it vanished. The ground came bubbling up above it, and the water too, and here they stand like ghosts on whom the other world closed suddenly, and who have no means of getting back again. They seem to be waiting the course of ages for the next earthquakes in that place, when they will plunge below the ground at its first yawning and be seen no more. The unhappy city below is not more lost really than these fire-charred hills and the stagnant water above. The red sun looked strangely on them, as with the knowledge that they were made for caverns and darkness. The melancholy water oozed and sucked the mud and crept quietly among the marshy grass and weeds, as if the overthrow of all the ancient towers and housetops and the dust of all the ancient people born and bred there were yet heavy on his conscience. So the village disappeared, the city disappeared, right? And the final page. A short ride from this lake brought us to Ronciglione in Lione, a little town like a large pigsty, where we passed the night. Next morning at 7 o'clock, we started for Rome. As soon as we were out of pigsty, we entered on the Campagna Romana, an undulating flat, as you know, where few people can live, where for miles and miles there's nothing to relieve the terrible monotony and gloom. All kinds of country that cloud by possibility lie outside the gates of Rome. There is aptest to fitest the burial ground for the dead city. So sad, so quiet, so silent, so secret in its covering up of great masses of ruin, hiding them, so like the waste places into which the man possessed with the devils used to go and howl, run themselves in the old days of Jerusalem. We had to traverse 30 miles of this campana, and for 22 we went on and on, seeing nothing but now and then a lonely house, a villainous-looking shepherd with matted hair all over his face, and himself wrapped to the chin in a frosy brown mantle, tending his sheep. At the end of the distance, we stopped to refresh the horses and to get some lunch in a common malaria-shaken, despondent little public house, whose every inch of wall and beam inside was, according to custom, painted and decorated in a way so miserable that every room looked like the wrong side of another room, and with this rushed imitation of the drapery and lopsided little daubs of lyres seemed to have been plundered from behind the scenes of some traveling circus. Interesting, right? When we were thoroughly going off again, we began in a perfect fever to strain our eyes for Rome. And when, after another mile or two, the eternal city appeared at length in the distance, the eternal city, the city disappeared. The city had disappeared, right? It looked like, I'm half afraid to write the word, like London. Mirage, right? Something, right? There it lay, under a thick cloud, with innumerable towers and steeples, roofs of houses rising up into the sky above, high above them all, one dome. I swear that keenly as I felt the seeming absurdity of the comparison, it was so like London at the distance, that if you could have shown it to me in a glass, I should have taken it for nothing else. Very beautiful essay, right? So you learned a lot by reading this travel essay, and you will make a fortune, right? you visit Italy and do your own travel essays, right? Like this. And some travel essays are very popular, and you make money. But these days you take photographs and you forget, right? You feel a lot of things, but you never recall them. So they are forgotten. You cannot. The second time you visit the places, you don't feel that way. So it's very important that you keep records of what you see while traveling, right? So that way you can make money, right? I don't know. Okay. Why don't you talk about this essay and which part you like best? Why don't you make 3 groups here and in the middle, another one, 3 groups, and talk about the part. If you look at the top, you see the place names, right? So you can focus on the essay. The essays are divided into groups, right? Joshua? Your homework. Okay, your homework.